Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for attending today's case studies at intersection, purpose, profit, and portfolio featuring Elizabeth Sporer. My name is Mike Wilson. I'm the executive director of the AIA East Bay. Elizabeth is the principal of SOARC, and you can see her beautiful logo here. She works with business management consulting for A&D firms in San Francisco in the Bay Area. She's also a licensed architect in California, as well as in Berlin, Germany, as leads accredited professional and certified integration coach. Her multifaceted experience includes architecture, design, business strategy, business management in her native Germany, as well as the US with firms such as EHDD, Perkins & Will, Studio S, and her own firm, SOARC. She holds a master's in science and advanced architecture design in Columbia University in the city of New York, as well as a master of architecture and bachelor's of architecture, both from TU Berlin and as an adjunct professor of professional practice in the California College of Arts in San Francisco. So you've got a fantastic background here for our little program here today. And without further ado, I'll hand it off to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Want to make sure that you know this is a CAS accredited event, so you will get one learning unit for attending. I wanted to also thank Mike, of course, Mike Wilson, and the AIA East Bay for setting this event up, and for Lisa Bockerin, who is with us today. Thank you very much for joining, for her strategic insights. We are going to go inside the A&D studio today to find out how you can really adjust your blueprint for a more successful outcome. Now this event continues a dialogue I started last year with a series of participants I'm organizing to bring fresh perspectives on current topics in architecture. They tie into what I'm teaching in professional practice at the California College of Arts. Now, last year's series was centered about entrepreneurial trends. This year is about what happens behind the scenes inside the A&D studio. Let me introduce myself. So my name is Elisabeth Spore. As Mike had already mentioned, I wear 3 hats. I'm a business management consultant, a leadership group advisor, and a career coach. If you want to know more about my thinking and what I'm into, you can follow my Instagram posts. They're weekly updated, or sign up to my monthly newsletters. I cover typically topics that are relevant to my clients that I'm working with my group of clients. The Instagram sign up is Elizabeth at SOARC, at Elizabeth_SOARC. And to sign up to the newsletter, you go to my website. Now that you know more about me, I would like to actually know more about you. So I would ask you to choose one of the following categories where your experience level mostly falls into. I'm watching the polling now, so you see it on your screen. I give you like a minute or so to fill it out. Then I will close it, and then we can look at the results together. All right. So I guess there is still something happening. Still something happening. I guess I close it now. So you see that 40% are emerging professionals, 43 evolving between 5 and 10 years, and 29 established, 14 senior professionals. I count myself as a senior professional as well. Thank you for joining that, for giving me that feedback, for giving us that feedback, in fact. Let's talk about the baseline. So we establish a language that everybody understands as I go through the case studies. So here is an overview diagram of how I look at how firms are organized. And this is also what helps firms develop a strategic plan. So this is the DNA, so to say, of a business. And you can create a strategic plan of how much you invest in each section. So there's 4 parts here. There's the business development and marketing part, which is about who gets the work. Then there's, of course, the practice and design part, well, who gets the work done, and the operations part, and who supports the team in terms of systems and administratively, and the finance part, who counts the money or manages the money. So profit, purpose, and portfolio are pretty much at the heart of all these elements. Each of these parts has a budget in itself. It's staff time, software, hardware, and expenses. And some of it is billable, some of it is non-billable. And I heavily advocate for balanced investment for resilient and successful growth. This gives us a glance at the look of finance, at the world of finances. So basically an R&D firm sells services, and that's how you make money. But only time that is categorized as billable can be sold, and 3 out of these 4 segments are considered non-billable. Basically everything other than practice is mostly non-billable work. The industry standard for an A&E firm shows a 5.2 ratio of technical staff to overhead staff, while still generating average profit, which means a small firm with 10 people may have 2 overhead staff, if you follow that thought, just so you understand. And now we're getting to my second survey. Now you understand how a business is structured, business development, practice, operations, and finance. And I'm curious what your role mostly falls into. So I think some of you will probably have to do everything. Look at it which of the areas will have the highest number of hours shown on your timesheet when you submit it. Here we go. Looking at, please vote. I hope you can see it, yes. So far, a lot of practice and design. I see heavily on the practice and design, but also business development and some operations. Interesting, yeah. Would like to give it maybe 1 more minute or a couple of more seconds, and I close the poll. Thank you. I put this on the side. So let's look at the firm categories. So again, we're in the part where I explain how I look at how firms or DNA of firms are made up. So throughout my career, I've been part of project teams and in management roles in Germany and the US, New York and San Francisco Bay Area. I worked for boutique firms in Berlin, spent some time in New York at grad school, and then worked at notable big firms and large firms, mid-size and large firms in the Bay Area. There were studios, Perkinsonville, and EHED, to name a few, before I started honing in onto my own practice. So what I have experienced is that most often firms are categorized in what stage they're in, number of years since they were established, so to say, what kind of services they provide. Are they a specialist, a switch hitter, or a general switch hitter, meaning you might go back and forth between architect of record and design architect, for instance. And the third one is the size of staff. So keep these categories in mind as we go into the next slide. Now, this is the way I look at firm profiles. So over the past 30 years, I've been part of about 30 firms, whether as a consultant, consulting with firms now, or whether as an employee or a principal. And I was a project lead, the management team, and now I'm advising owners and leaders mostly in firms. And these are the three firm profiles that have emerged in my experience. So the criteria I looked at is at the top you see the number of staff, the size, whereas the vertical axis is the years in business. So there's the entrepreneur firm, which it has typically less than 20 employees and is typically, so less than 20 employees and less than 25 years in existence. Then there is a Maverick Form, which has typically more than 25 employees and is also less than 25 years in business. And there is also a legacy firm, which is typically more than 25 years in business. So keep these three profiles in mind. The case studies do go into these categories. So we do another brief survey. I've defined the firm profile, so I'm curious as to where do you see your firm fall into in terms of that categorization. So again, the first one, the entrepreneurial, is less than 25 people, less than 20 people, less than 25 years in business. The legacy firm has been in business for well over 25 years, and the Maverick is less than 20 years in business, but bigger than 25 staff. All right. So the majority is in entrepreneurial and legacy firms. Interesting. Okay. Waiting for one more maybe. Let's close the end of the polling. And here you can see the results. So the majority is in legacy firms. Good. Now let's go into the case studies. So we look back at the business plan and see what happens when a business plan, a blueprint needs to be adjusted, because you make a 1, 2, or 5 year plan and things change, and then you have to figure out, you have to create initiatives to adjust what is not working. So each one of these case studies, we look at we look at the challenges, what it does to the blueprint, and we measure the results. So these are, I think, it's a blend of experiences I made with several firms over the last couple of years. So the first case study is actually a legacy firm. And the challenge that they came up with or asked me to help with was a legacy firm is about longevity, because they have been 25 years already in business, no matter what size they are. So cross-country skier symbolizes that. This firm in particular had actually more than 50 staff. The challenge was to create a leadership strategy to increase productivity, profitability, while keeping staff retention. They were losing staff a lot. So the 1 year plan centered around stabilization and effectivity, and definitely not on growth. So what we did is we restructured the leadership team in combination of implementation of standardized tools and implementation of training programs, in particular for project managers. So a very effective staffing process was put in place that was tied back to the financial performance, so they could monitor how good or bad projects are doing, how busy they really are, do they need to grow or not, do they need more work, or do they need more staff? The result was actually an increase in revenue, because it became just apparent, this is how busy we really are, this is how effective, how efficient we really are. Profits went up quite a bit, 300%, and staff turnover stopped, because staff felt like, oh my God, they finally see what needs to be done and how we need to work. Then we look at the same firm, over 50 people. The firm is definitely 30 years in existence. We look at the 5 year plan here. Since we had established clarity in the leadership structure, the firm could grow again. An operations leader was put in place. They oversaw the target performance, standards, communication, and staff development. So this is why it's shown blue here. Time management for clients, projects, and teams were honored and also clearly made visible. An effective financial reporting system was put in place. Standardized processes were clearly they had standardized processes before, but over the course of rapid growth, none of them were really respected, and we had to bring it back to saying this is the standard. This is how we do things. This is how we agree to do things on the project side, on the management side, on the business development side, on every aspect in the firm. And we're very clear on implementing staff development and retention plans. The staff felt also like they're seen for the work they do, not only the project managers on the financial side, everybody on staff is part of being an reward system, excuse me. What was visible is that the revenues again grew by 27%. Profit increased again, but not as significant because it had stabilized, and the firm could grow by 10% at that point in time. Let's look at the next study. It's an Entrepreneurial Studio. The challenge in this one was that, entrepreneurial studios are about versatility, and the triathlete kind of shows that. They're less than 25 years in business and have up to 20 staff. This particular firm had actually 10 staff. The challenge I was presented with was that the firm wanted to grow in size and diversify its market sectors. And the strategy we had decided upon was seeking strategic alliances in the project pursuit. Excuse me. Which meant we basically worked in all 4 areas for this particular firm. So typically for an entrepreneurial firm, it takes 1 or 2 years to go this whole process looking at all 4 areas. But some firms may take actually a decade or longer to really address it all, depending on how much time and resources can be allocated to invest in either one of these sectors. Now, entrepreneurs are really prone to be caught in the founder's trap, which means they're not delegating enough. They have not developed a leadership team. They're not investing sufficient time into training the leadership team in particular, or the team other than that, while draining their own batteries by not taking time off. So, which will allow them effectively to not grow, because you're extending your own kind of resources constantly. So in this case, the firm internally expanded the leadership team and the administrative team. That in itself allowed for resilience and growth at the same time. Excuse me. There's a typo in here. I'm sorry, I just see that now. On the business development side, what happened is during the very beginning of the engagement, we reached out to strategic partners, big firms that had complementary kind of projects, and created successful alliances to pursue work in related areas. So the small firm got actually exposure on big projects. On the operations side, there was a business leader, an operations leader dedicated, which oversaw the whole standardization of firm processes. On the financial side, we worked very hard on establishing financial reporting system. The firm had an accountant, and we just trained the accountant to really be clear on what exactly needs to be looked at, established reports that get maintained and monitored every month. And on the practice side, there was also a studio leader designated, and the roles and responsibilities of each staff member were clearly defined. What also happened simultaneously, or as a second wave on the business development and marketing side, was that the firm engaged in a branding campaign that they're still in the midst of, which helped them really define getting the message out as to who they are and who they want to work with and can work with. And it has been proving very, very successful in the effort to get new projects as well as staff expanding and growth. So the result of the 2 years is that the revenues have been growing by 10 years, profit and staff size simultaneously. The firm was profitable before, rather profitable. So it was not a challenge, but it was like, how do we continue to grow and keep that kind of success rate going? And we could do that. So let's look at the third case study. It's what I would call the Maverick Form, a Maverick Form. So Mavericks are about growth and profitability. They tend to be less than 25 years in business, yet have more than 20 staff. So they grew over a relatively short period of time with an architecture to that size. In this case, the challenge was to create a leadership strategy to solidify firm culture, raise the design profile, and retain key staff. So the practice area is mostly highlighted. This firm had actually 35 staff. So the first year, the 1 year plan was again centered around stabilization and the culture inside the firm and the firm's design profile. So there was a design and technical leader put in place. Roles and responsibilities were more defined. There was a real staff development and training plan developed, and staff was asked to take and allowed to take the time to really go and pursue that. And the firm invested into design competitions and award submittals, which boosted the esteem of staff quite a bit. The culture basically, because of the design award submittals and the investment in training, switched around rather quickly. Staff felt rewarded for the work they put in. And the work of the firm gradually changed and became more diversified as the firm also invested in pro bono work. So the result was 0 on our, but that was actually very good because most of the retention was an issue and there was no loss of staff at that time, but profits stayed the same, the revenue stayed the same, besides, even though the firm invested heavily into internal development. Now let's look at the 2-year plan, the same firm. Again, the firm had stabilized during the first year. The leadership team had grown. The firm culture includes design award submittals, staff development, a diversified portfolio, and pro bono work. And staff is rewarded for success independent of financial success, and the operations leader made a huge difference. Again, what I did not point out in the diagram at least is the firm went through a major branding campaign at the same time, in the second stage, year 2 and year 3, with a new website, new logo, everything, which boosted the presence and the way staff felt about the firm immensely, even clients. So the firm has grown rapidly since and has actually quite success with staff retention. The result is the revenue were growing by 10%, profit increased by 5%, and staff size by 10%. Now that we looked at the case studies, I would like to possibly get a little bit of a better understanding of how you feel or think your own firm is behaving in all that. Meaning, I need to switch to the right poll. Do you think your firm is closest to the first one, second, or third case study? I'll launch the poll so you can see it. The first one is, do you think there's a new leadership strategy to increase productivity, profitability, and staff retention necessary? Do you think there's that the firm may want to grow and need strategic alliances or business development campaign to do that? Or the third one, would you rather think the firm needs to invest into internal cultivation of culture to raise the design profile and retain key staff? Now, I forgot to mention the fourth, none of the above. I'm sorry for that. If you feel like your firm is not falling into any of these, just feel free to not respond. I don't want to push you into anything, but I'm curious where you see. I think every firm needs to invest constantly. It never ends. And so just look at it as, this is where I am right now in 2020. Where do you think your firm's investment might be best fitting in? All right, I leave it with still one or two more coming. I'll give it a few more seconds to see. There's a heavy leaning towards the firm culture, design, profile, retain staff. And also the second one is the design strategic alliances and basically diversify the firm. Thank you for sharing that. So here's the goal. What's the takeaway? Now, how can you make your business the healthiest it can be for peak performance? Now, leading a firm is an art, and more so during this complex time as we navigate what cannot be known or seen. So short-term impact plans define a 3 to 6 months period with significant changes to your 1 to 5 year business plan or blueprint. Now, keep in mind, your business is built up out of the 4 components that I mentioned. And when in an economic climate as we are in right now, your firm may have to take measures to become more efficient, possibly leaner, or grow while working from home. I really advise to keep your vision and purpose in mind when adapting your plan. So invest in your teams, enhance communication, create alignment, and create effective feedback loops. I give you a little bit more insight into that. What I mean with connect with your purpose. I mean, we all have to make sure that we bring the best out in us rather than giving oxygen to the negative thoughts. And that's even more so necessary in the times you're in right now. So focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. When I talk about investing in your teams and communication, I'm talking, we all spend a lot of time in Zoom meetings these days. Make a little bit of time at the beginning of meetings just to do a quick check-in and create a code kind of system as to how you measure the temperature of the room of how people are doing. And since it changes on a daily basis quite a bit, but you get at least a sense of where people are at and honor that. And if you're really adventurous, you might even follow up with a question as to how you can build more trust within your staff or with your clients, and really seek proposals for everybody involved in the conversation. What I also think is very important is that you try to create alignment in your team of staff, consultants, whoever is part of your team, and clients and contractors, of course. There is a lot of opportunity to find the negative side or the division, but focus on what unites you and bring that together and try to connect that with your vision. It gives you much more energy and a boost, and gives you satisfaction. And allow for an effective feedback loop of anybody you're communicating with, so that they feel safe, that they can say what they think without being judged. You don't have to react, you don't have to respond, but at least make the space and time to listen to what is said and be empathetic. Again, but some short-term impact plans may be to become leaner. So your firm may accomplish that in several ways. You can reduce planned expenses, of course. You can reduce staff hours. You can reduce salaries to keep everybody on staff. Or worst case, you can consider that you downsize the firm and to remain competitive. That's only one part of what I see happening in the marketplace right now. What I see happening with some of my clients is too, that there's an unplanned growth happening in the current climate, and you're hiring and you're expanding and optimizing your systems. So I advise you if you are in that boat, I advise you to even be more diligent in the interviewing and onboarding process to allow for successful integration and what I call a cultivated office culture. That goes back into the communication I mentioned earlier on. And what I do recommend in terms of optimizing the communication or enhancing the communication is when you do your check-ins, like I mentioned, you do allow for feedback, but you also create a whole series of different types of meetings. And maybe best is you code them so everybody knows what to expect. Is it like a quick check-in, 10 minutes? Is it an update on a project, 10, 15 minutes? Is it a deep dive to problem solve, 1 to 2 hours or longer? Is it just to keep connections going, 15 minutes? Is it a social gathering, half an hour to 1 hour? So everybody knows what to expect and can manage time and also emotionally what is coming. And make sure that new staff is really getting socially engaged with others with online lunches and whatnot. I hope you're aware of that. Now let's look at back in the diagram that I have on the screen. So these are the 4 sectors, and they kind of, the screen shows what the biggest kind of tasks or responsibilities in these areas are. And if you have to plan for a reduction or expansion overall in your firm, I really advise you to balanced investment. Now that's good. Now, assessing how a business performs is part of my services. But you can do a quick stress test on your own by rating these categories below on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest and 1 and 0 obviously, or 1 the lowest. I would ask you to do that quickly in a scratch pad while I keep talking, and then we do a quick survey after that. So you can see on the screen what it is. Now, what my experience right now is business development and marketing are hot topics, looking in particular at the 4th quarter of 2020. So I want to offer a few marketing tips and remind you of Bacon's Law. So Bacon's Law is referring to that most people really prefer working with somebody or hiring somebody they already know or somebody they know and trust knows. So you look for what you can take advantage of that system by asking for introductions and referrals by your friends, by your clients, to potential new clients or consultants that you want to work with. I would certainly encourage taking advantage of that and make sure that you invest into your relationships in LinkedIn. You can actually research as to, if you know somebody you want to know, find out who they know. Maybe it's somebody that is friends or a client of yours, so you can get a connection that way. Send personalized emails, make phone calls, schedule virtual visits or distance meetups if you start a new project. This, in combination with some marketing initiatives, may enhance your business development efforts. I do recommend keeping your website fresh and including the content, so the way it looks and the content. I also encourage you to attend networking events of your clients. So you have to research what kind of events would they go to, and you go to those events. If you have Zoom interviews, really well, prepare well and nice graphics. Test the audio, video extensively before that, so everything is working well. If you have to do pre-proposal site meetings, make sure that you have safe standards in place and communicate that to your clients. And showcase yourselves at events, create events, or join events that others have set up, be it your clients, be it associated professional organizations. Now, brand is another hot topic. If you consider making changes in particular, which I would assume some of you are doing at this point. So here are a few thoughts on brand. Understand your brand is more than a logo. It's a whole experience about your mission. It's about messaging. It's about how you and your staff interact with others. It's about graphic design and the visual identity. It's about the reputation of your firm culture. So all that is communicated with anything that is related to your brand, be it your website, be it social media, be it an email you send out or a meeting invitation you send. So look at brand as a promise that you make to anybody, your clients, your staff, your friends, and not just a suggestion. So you have to follow through with it. A brand can speak in your absence. It can increase recognition and memorability. It enables people to implicitly understand your values. It helps potential clients envision what the experience will be like to work with your firm. It can improve talent recruitment. It increases firm valuation. What it cannot do is replace business development or any marketing activities. You need to really make sure that people know that you're there. So let's go back to the stress test. I hope that you had a chance to rate which area you feel like needs most improvement. Is A is rated highest at this point, and which might need most improvement. And we do a quick survey. And here I want you to pick only one way, the one that you feel like you would see a need to invest the next 3 to 6 months, based on the assessment you just did, the stress test. Operations is how efficiently are you delivering your services. It's also, do you have optimized systems? Do you have optimized support staff in place? The finances, how is the cash flow? Is the firm sized right? Is there balance between income and expenses to have some profit or desired profit? The practice side is how nimbly can you adjust your services based on the needs of your clients and on the market, what is going on there right now. And business development and marketing, how is your pipeline? How is your brand aligned with the new normal? Where are things going? I give it another few seconds. I think so right now it seems like the business development and marketing and the operations seem to be a tie in terms of what some of you see as a need to invest in. Thank you for sharing that. So let's move on a little bit and look at performance indicators of a firm. I strongly believe that making any decision that you do in your firm should be based on knowing how well you do financially. And it doesn't matter how big your firm is or what kind of profile you are in terms of the 3 types that I introduced earlier on. But you need to establish baseline performance indicators so that you know how you're doing. I recommend that you do know who your clients are, which percentage of their projects are falling in which category, and how do they perform. I also assume and hope that you do know how big your revenues and profit are any given year or month in particular, and map that possibly, or know it at least in numbers. I also highly recommend that you do understand and monitor carefully as to how your staff performs in terms of utilization. That's just the middle graph in the middle. It's actually the same firm mapped for 3 years. And what you can see is in 2017, in particular, the utilization of that firm was above the baseline, which is shown in orange. Whereas in 2015, 2016, they were on target. 2019, they were below expectations. 2018, still somewhat above. But then there is another indicator of how good or bad a firm is doing. It's called the NEM, net effective multiplier, and the break-even factor. The break-even factor is shown in orange. The break-even shows you this is the multiplier you use to establish standard billing rates. You definitely want to have a billing rate that is above that break-even rate to generate profit. The net effective shows you this is really what happened. So 2015, the firm did really well. 2016, reasonably well. 2017, despite high utilization, a low in NEM. So even though everybody was working a lot of billable hours, they could not be billed to their clients, which the NEM indicates here. 2018 was a break-even year. 2019 a little bit below break-even year, not doing as well. So again, the profit here shows too that it was negative in 2017 in the kind of orange diagram above. This is another diagram of how you do want to know what your backlog is, which is shown in black here. This is the fees you have in contract projected over an entire year. So you know how much billings you anticipate to have January through December of the year. The dashed line here shows the staff capacity, meaning you have a certain number of staff, you have established a billing rate for them, a utilization target. You can project how much billings you would anticipate if they work at full capacity. It's, even though the staff size in this case was the same, it fluctuates a little bit over the year due to holidays and vacations. What you can see is that the firm had actually a weaker backlog than staff capacity in the first 3 months of the year, and by that time, the backlog exceeded by quite a bit the capacity of the firm. The orange is the real billings. It was apparently better than the backlog, which is nice, and it's trailing still above right now. The blue shows also additional work that is in negotiation right now that you anticipate coming on to your project. What this curve in particular tells me, that firm is hiring. They're hiring right now. They need staff. They have more work in their backlog than they have staff. So this gives you a tool to make those decisions comfortably. It's not just a gut feeling, it's a real knowledge. Oops, I'm sorry. And the break-even in particular that I mentioned here, it helps you set the billing rates, competitive billing rates. So you anticipate a profit, but you want to compete with your friends, unfortunately. That's how business is working. And you want to know what your capacity is versus backlog. There's also other diagrams that I did not include about cash flow and accounts receivable. You do want to monitor those very, very carefully as well, so that you can call clients in case they fall behind on payments, or if you see that your cash flow is below, your bank account is low. So let's do another survey. This one is more like for me finding out where your interest is. I'm not asking you how your firm is doing. I would not dare doing that. It's more like, if you want to get more, if you would get more training, informal webinars or whatever, where would you want to know, what would you want to know more about? The first one is more about the fee projections, fee potential. How do you do that? How do you really understand to manage and monitor that and do that well? The second one is more about business plan. Do you want to know more about how a business plan is really done and done right? And the third one is more about the intrinsics, kind of the NEM and break-evens, more these factors that are a little harder to grasp, but they're very important to know from my perspective. The backlog is something every firm should have, and I hope you do. That's why I put that on the top. I give it a few more moments. Seems like there's an interest in business plans and a little bit in the kind of NEMs and break-even factors, how to monitor and know more about that. All right. I think I call it. Thank you for sharing. I'm getting towards the end of the presentation. I want to make space for questions and answers too. So that was the plan. And please feel free to do submit questions via the chat. I did not have a chance to look at it in between. I was planning, but couldn't. I will definitely look at it in a few minutes. A strategic plan is a very important part of your business, and while there are various blueprints for success, your blueprint for success will be unique to your business. To establish a solid connection between purpose, profit, and portfolio, you need a vision for your firm. And the reason you need to do that is to really set you apart from others. And all built on financial health, so you can provide services you're good at and work on the projects you enjoy working on successfully and deliver them to your clients successfully. Adaptability is the new resiliency in the near future. Going back to what was, which is what resiliency suggests, may no longer be enough for many firms. So we have to change to come out of this period successfully. So while the blueprints for success are unique, what's common, as I mentioned earlier, is a balanced investment in all areas of your business, from finance, business development, marketing, practice design, and operations. And as businesses of design, financial health is important to achieving overall peak performance. So you create your origin story, and your metrics do reflect the true story. So what I do best for my clients is to help them arrive at the intersection of purpose, profit, and portfolio, and write the firm's success story. With that said, I'm wrapping up this conversation. I encourage you to stay in touch with me and ask me questions now or via email. As you can see, the email is shown at the bottom of the slide. So we can have, we can possibly continue our dialogue. With that, I will look now, I'm looking at the chat room. One question is, what software do you use to manage the KPIs? It's an interesting one. Small firms tend to work with QuickBooks as a accounting system and track hours via Harvest or several others. To really get to the KPIs in a meaningful way, it's a little bit challenging. I recommend to invest in a professional services accounting software that might be a little bit more pricey, but does give you that feedback. And that's might be Deltex, Agera, it might be InFocus. But I think is way out of, not necessary for any of the firm sizes we have here in the Bay Area. QuickBooks, quite a few of my clients work with QuickBooks and other associated timekeeping software. You can get and you can track all the these KPIs. They take a little bit of time because you have to combine timesheet information with the financial management with the accounting software. Curious, I hope that answered the question. Do we have any other questions right now? All right, then I have a last survey and I'll let you kind of run through that. If you were to get training yourself, your firm, anybody around you, what training would you be mostly interested in? If you could vote on that, I would highly appreciate that. It gives me a sense of where the interest of the audience is. I see, mostly on the business development and practice design side, a little bit operations as well. Awesome, good, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I closed the poll, so it seems like almost a tie, mostly in the business development, marketing, practice design, and operations side, less on the finance side. Thank you for sharing. Well, I think I am at the end of my presentation. I hope that I stirred some interest and answered any questions you had. You learned something, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch. Thank you very much for attending today. Goodbye.
Thanks, Elizabeth. That was great.
All right. Glad you liked it. We can have, I can unmute everybody, and I'm more than happy to have conversations rather than just a chat room. I didn't think about that. I just went through my show, I guess.
I think having a conversation about BD and marketing and the differences between the two would be very helpful for people.
Yes, I know, and that's I decided to bring that into this presentation this time because I do see there is a big need on that end, coming from the clients I work with and also the inquiries I have these days. And doing education in that area seems to be also very interesting and important. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And also even the difference between marketing and PR, or how that PR component is really part of a marketing plan.
It should be integrated, but you're the specialist more than I am, at least. You want to say something about it? I would appreciate it.
No, I think to just have an overview, because BD is not the same as marketing. I think you have to have a business plan, then a marketing plan, then your BD strategy kind of feeds off of the business plan, and the marketing and BD support each other.
Right.
Because what can happen sometimes is the BD takes precedence over everything because people are desperate for work. And so there's no strategy behind the pursuit. So.
Yes, I do encourage my clients right now to spend a lot of time on the strategy part up front before getting into any initiative. You are correct.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Because to your point about brand, it's not just your logo, it's your reputation, it's your credibility. And when people try to do quick fixes or pivots that are not thoughtful, their business could suffer, their brand could suffer, everything that they worked toward for the past 5-10 years. If they grab something just for the sake of grabbing it in the moment, it could backfire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that goes back to your point about really having a business plan.
A business plan that is differentiated enough, as you mentioned, to go into those different aspects, which is for small firms ever so more a challenge to really find where is the difference and who do I need to help me with addressing all the different aspects of it.
Yeah. I think some small firms even get overwhelmed by social media, and social media is just one way of reaching clients. I think for small firms, like you said, the Bacon's law, you don't need to reach a lot of people. You just need to reach the right ones. And oftentimes the right ones are in front of them already.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah. Figuring out who do you really want to reach. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Spending more time on defining that. And then honing really in on that. Yes.
Yeah, because some clients are very overwhelmed by social, and then they end up not doing it well. And that's, that's a whole conversation in itself. But you don't need to reach that many people unless you are a mass market brand with a staff that can, or a big enough firm with somebody who's actually handling social media. Otherwise, it can be a time suck for small firms unnecessarily. So, another topic, Elizabeth.
Another topic. I know. Oh my God, there are so many topics.
Yeah, but I think to help people focus, I think is what you're doing and what I'm doing as well with my client work, so that people are not overwhelmed thinking they have to do what the next person is doing, even if it's not appropriate for their business.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know what you said about staying true to your vision and your purpose, right?
And it's also hard to sometimes even figure that one out at the moment. I think making the
True.
time to even reflect on that and distill that can be a huge accomplishment.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, I have to run. Good job.
Thank you so much for being part of
Yeah.
this. Thank you all. Thank you, Ursula. I know you're still there somewhere.
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening to Lisa talk. So
Hi, Ursula. Lovely to
I'm
lovely to hear your voice.
muted.